Hey, y'all, I'm Shane Sams. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast today. For those who may not know, I'm a self-employed, location-independent, family-focused entrepreneur, and I make my entire living online. That was my dream when I started my business, but this podcast is not about me. I started this podcast to help you find success too by interviewing some of the biggest authors, influencers, and entrepreneurs on the planet. My mission is to unlock their strategies and tactics that my guests use to succeed so you can go out and find your success as well. Which brings me to my guest today. Her name is Shana Bresnahan. She is a preeminent community strategist for membership owners, and she leads some of the biggest membership communities and Facebook groups online. You know, when you're trying to be a business owner, you're trying to be a community leader, you're trying to be a thought leader, you're trying to build an audience and build a community about the things that you want to do, you are taking on an amazing responsibility. The internet makes it possible to lead hundreds, even thousands of people online. And effective community management is going to be critical for all of your success and to keep your stress levels low. And I have to say, this conversation that I have with Shanna today really inspired me to not only lead my community better, but also implement some of her strategies with our team so that we can help our audience and our community succeed. In today's podcast, Shanna is going to tell us how we can lead our communities more effectively, how we can mobilize the culture of our community to help us accomplish our mission, how we can have better communication and connection with our memberships. We're going to talk about tactical strategies for starting, building, growing, and leading big Facebook groups. And we cap off our conversation with strategies for dealing with those important topics that are going to come up in our communities. Topics like the global pandemic, topics like racial justice, controversial political subjects that people bring up in your membership communities and your Facebook groups. We're going to talk about how to navigate that as a community leader and strategies your team can use to make sure you handle all of these conversations effectively. I'll tell you what, I've interviewed a lot of amazing people on this podcast, and I can say today's conversation with Shana Bresnahan ranks up at the top of the list. It's going to make you a better business owner, a better leader, and a better entrepreneur. So grab a notepad and a pen, pour yourself a hot coffee or a cup of sweet tea. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. 3, 2, 1. Hi, Shanna. How you doing?
Hey, Shane. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. Now, listen, we're going to pick back up. We were talking off air, and I don't want to stop talking about what we were talking about. But I have to give you a massive shout out because how you came into my world was through the one and only, the immortal Dan Miller. I sent so Dan amazing. A message. I sent Dan a message. I said, I need world-class, top-notch community managers. Who is someone that can help me do this? And the first person he sent back was you. And he was like, if you don't talk to her, you're a fool. So
I love it.
So Dan Miller, you're high on Dan Miller's awesome list. Is that not amazing?
Well, that is, if I had to pick a list to be high on, it would definitely be Dan's list. I love it. I actually just got to see him in Sarasota not too long ago. So that was fun.
He's one of those people that just makes your soul happy.
He does.
Hanging out with him. And he's an awesome guy. But let's get back to you. You're here today. You're my featured guest on the podcast. We're going to talk about community management. So how did you even get into this? Because this is not like you don't grow up going, if I could just be an online community manager up to the stars, I would do that. So how did you go down this rabbit hole?
Well, it's so funny because when I started doing it, there was no such thing as community management. I was actually working for a large academic medical center here in Nashville, Vanderbilt University Medical Center, and pushed them as the young gun that I was at the time into all things online marketing and social media. And so we launched their first Facebook pages for their different children's hospital, cancer center, all of that, Twitter accounts. And so I just naturally started managing communities because if I said we have to launch these social media pages and groups, well, guess what? I was going to be the one to manage them. So that's how I initially got started. And then when I moved into my consulting career, pretty much everybody that I was working with had some type of online community. And ultimately that led to helping them hire community managers to run their communities that we were building. And then the wonderful Stu McLaren, who you and I both know, he reached out and he's like, Shanna, he's like, I need I need community strategy. I need something higher level. Like, help me out here. Can you come alongside us and support us in what we're doing? And he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself that helped me elevate what I was doing to a whole nother level.
Wow. Isn't it amazing when, this you kind of put yourself in the right place to be in the right place at the right time. But then these relationships that emerge and do push you outside of your comfort zone and push you beyond what you're going to, like, Stu's great at that. He's like, whenever he speaks or whenever I talk to him, he's just like, yeah, everybody's awesome. And let me tell you why you're awesome, and he just makes you a better human when you're, so I'm sure it's been awesome working with him.
Well, it has been. And, I actually joined his community to launch my own membership. And I did end up launching my own membership. I actually shut it down to be able to work alongside him and his team. But I think that was part of the draw for him, was that I knew community strategy. I knew how it tied into marketing and everything else that you do. But I had also actually been through the trenches of launching my own membership and loving on my own community as well.
Well, let's we like to dive right into stuff right now. So what do you think makes a great, okay, so I don't know, let me see if I asked this correctly. I got two questions here. What makes a great community manager?
Yeah.
And then maybe we could go into like 5 or 6 things that great community managers physically actually do. Yeah. Right. So what makes a great community manager? Like, I have a community manager for my community. And my wife is very, very involved in our community as a community manager. And they just take that over and they lead the community and they do those things. So if someone, I'm going to break this again. If, let's say I'm the person who owns the membership and I'm a community manager, what makes a great community manager from that respect? And then who do we hire that would make a great community manager too?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you really want to think about when you're leading a community is the bigger picture of it. So I teach the 4 pillars of a thriving community, but the first one is cause, really being focused on what's that common mission and vision that we're all moving forward in. And if you have a membership, right, you are moving people towards something. The second one is culture. What is the culture that we want to create? Seth Godin said it best. He said, people like us do things like this. We've got to create those common languages and things like that happen inside of our community. The third one is communication. This is something that oftentimes we're really good at, the outgoing communication. Like, here's all of the awesome stuff I got for you. But we're not very good at incoming, like collecting information through surveys or really paying attention to what's happening in those support emails, or really diving into those internal conversations that are happening among our members. And then the fourth one is connection. That's like the hardest one for people. It's what everybody comes to me for. How do I get my community to engage more and be more connected? And ultimately, that starts with a foundation of safety. So I kind of talk about that a lot. How do you create a safe environment? So when you're leading from a high level, you want to be thinking about those things. It's not just a Facebook group. It's not just commenting on posts and responding to people. It's like, how are we cultivating this bigger culture, this motivating people around this cause? So that's really what I like to be thinking about. And from a practical perspective, I get asked all the time, how do I hire a community manager? What do I look for in a community manager? So we'll talk about the foundations, the foundational things for a community manager. The first one is communication skills. What are their oral and written communication skills? They are the go-between between you, the team, the community. They really need to be able to communicate effectively. And the second thing is detail-oriented. And this is one some people sometimes argue with me on, which is fine. But because they are that go-between, and often in our memberships, we have so many details that we're communicating, where to find deliverables or when this live is going to be happening. And those community managers, they've got a lot that they're trying to communicate at once, along with managing other projects and trying to love on the community. So they've got to be able to handle a lot of details.
And it's like task switching for a community manager, because one minute you're talking to someone who's mad, the next minute someone's happy, the next minute someone's confused, and like you're ticking all the boxes in the comments and your Zendesk,
and then like 2 seconds later you're writing an email out to the community. Like, you're just you're doing all the things, and then the third thing is they have to love people. And I'm going to qualify this one, because everybody tells you that they love people. You don't know if you love people until you have actually worked in some sort of customer support role. And it doesn't have to be online. It could be retail. It could be, customer service on the phone at an auto dealer. I don't know. But you have to have worked in that kind of role to know if you really love people and love
Because
working with
somebody's
people.
going to get mad eventually. Someone's
Yes.
going to get mad at you.
Yeah. And how are you going to handle that? Right. I know so many people who are amazing people. They love their friends. They love others. They're servant minded. But when somebody gets mad at them, it wrecks them for weeks.
Yes.
They're not great community managers, as amazing as they are. Right.
Yeah.
It's not good for them. You got to find somebody who they're good for the role, but the role is good for them as well.
It's so counterintuitive because like, I'm just like I'm the cause guy, right? Like I'm like Stu. I'm just up on stage. I'm the evangelist. I'm the guy, right? Doing this. And you think that like intuitively, like your community manager needs to be like the rah person, right? But it's so not. It's the person who can calm down and think through a problem, and they don't just like all the time. They listen and they go in and they can communicate with people. And what you said there like hit me right in the soul when you said they have to be able to like take the customer service stuff, because Jocelyn, my wife, for a long time we thought, oh well, Jocelyn loves people. Like as a person, she's really kind. So she really took a role as leading the forums and the Facebook groups and things like that, customer service for a while in our business, while I was like on the air and doing those things. It crushed her because she just does not dig the negativity, man. She can't process it. It weighs her down. She wants everybody to be so happy that one little comment will break her, right?
Yeah.
And when we were looking for someone who could manage the community, we really were like, we need someone who can compartmentalize. We need someone who can be like, this is not personal. This person probably doesn't even know why they're mad. And it's probably because someone was mean to them and they're just here and they're mad and they're causing a ruckus inside the community. And we learned that. And the detail-oriented thing, I should never, ever be in charge of the Facebook group or a Zendesk, because I am not detailed. I had to marry my wife and hire an assistant just to get the details and organize
just to get
life.
the stuff done, right? Keep your life in order. I love it.
Yeah. Crazy.
I love that you said that about your wife, because, I often have people coming to me telling me that their community manager is burnt out and they don't understand why. All they're doing is commenting in a Facebook group. Like, how hard is that? And I'm like, first off, that's not all they're doing. If that's who you hired, then you hired for the wrong role. But
you hired for tasks, not for leadership.
Right. And secondly, it's oftentimes that people hire their community members who are the cheerleaders. They're showing up in the group all the time and they're naturally loving on people and encouraging people and supporting people. And then think, oh my gosh, they're going to be an amazing community manager. So I'm going to put them in this role. I'm going to give them all sorts of behind the scenes responsibilities. And they're going to have to take all of the junk that everybody throws on us. And they don't understand why that person can't handle it. And it's like, this person is Mr. or Miss Positivity. They don't want to handle all of the conflict that comes with running a community. And they don't want to be stuck in Asana task or whatever project management tool you use. They don't want to be stuck in that all day. So it's no wonder they're struggling with doing this. And so I think oftentimes, like I have to teach people, like the most active person in your community is maybe a great ambassador, and that's fantastic, but they're not necessarily going to be a great community manager for those reasons.
They're the people you tag when you want a post to take off.
Yeah.
And like, you want people to like, I'm here, I'm talking, I'm good, this is awesome. And then, but as soon as someone's like mean and or they have to make a decision to wield the band hammer or something, they're not going to do that.
No, not going to happen. And we have community ambassadors and we love them and we absolutely utilize them. We utilize them during launch. We utilize them to support in our like free Facebook group that we have, because we have almost 50,000 people in there. We can handle that very effectively with just our team. And they have very clear roles. Like they know what their job is. They have access to the resources where they can help and support people like they want to. But when conflict arises, they know, they call us, they call the team. They're not to handle that on their own. And not just because, we don't think they can handle it, but we want to savor their energy for the things that are motivating and encouraging.
Do you think out of these three major things that you like, if we're looking for a community manager, or I think that, some people, It's hard to let go of your community to a community manager. I went through that when we were starting to hire out people because you feel like it's like your baby and you want them to take care of them. Like, do you search for people in that order? Like if we were doing a job search as membership owners, communication and oral, that's the first one. If they can't do that, probably good. Detail oriented. And then at the love people thing, do you just qualify that as what's your customer service background? Like, do you look for that?
Yeah. So I actually have a really tricky job application process that qualifies for all three of these. So one of the ways that I do it is I actually hide in the job description. I say, like, I think it's in our company values. It says, if you're reading this, there are two misspellings in this job description. Put the answer to those misspellings in number 4.
That's
okay.
genius.
So they've got to find,
gosh.
they've got to find that. I have them submit a introduction video and I give them specific parameters, right? About how to name the video. It's got to be uploaded to Dropbox or Google Drive. It needs to be less than 3 minutes. Everybody gives me YouTube videos longer than 3 minutes. They just can't follow those, detailed directions.
Yeah.
When it comes to so the communication piece, the video is going to help me a lot. And I ask open-ended questions so I can see their written communication. But that detail-oriented piece that's in there, I also had another one. I had a keyword in there that says, like, if you're reading this, put the word train in the answer to number 5. It helps me weed out applications super quick and get to the people who are detail-oriented. And then the loving people, it is a bit about their background, but there are plenty of people that have worked in customer support begrudgingly and not loved it.
Like they had to or whatever.
Right. So in the interview process, we're asking questions like, tell me about a time that a customer had a conflict with you and how you handled it. Or tell me about a time that there was a particular issue inside of this community or company and how did you approach that creatively? So we're looking for like, how did they put the customer first in that situation? Did they go above and beyond in that situation? Or did they just try to like check the box and move on because that's what the task was in hand?
Yeah, that's amazing. Like what behind the scenes stuff? You said something about like behind the scenes things. Like we give them maybe tasks they shouldn't be doing, or it's like you get a community manager and sometimes I've seen people turn community managers into, oh, unicorn VA. I also want you to do X, Y, and Z that has nothing to do with community management, right? Can you clear the tags out of my WordPress? Can you upload my plugins and all that stuff? Like, what do you think are the critical tasks that we should as membership owners, as business owners, maybe the face of your company, like what should we be handing off to them? What's fair to give to a community manager right from the beginning that can really help, like someone like me or Stu or you or someone to free them up to go do the things that we're good at?
Yeah.
What are those important tasks?
That's a great question. I was just having this conversation with somebody yesterday, and I'll kind of like tell you where it starts and then how it grows, because I actually see now that community managers really start out as what I will call an engagement manager. Their primary role is relationships and conversations that are happening inside of the Facebook group. So they're making sure that people feel heard, they feel seen, that they're getting them the resources that they need and connecting them to others inside of the group. So that's really the first and primary role of a community manager. But secondary is where that communication piece comes in. How are they organizing the membership deliverables and communicating them in an effective way so that people are consuming your content and making progress? This comes down to the announcements inside of a Facebook group, how you're organizing your guides, formerly known as units, because Facebook likes to change names on things all the time. But how are you organizing your guides and communicating your deliverables there? And they may even be involved with like the social posts that are going out announcing deliverables and an engagement post around that deliverable that's about the implementation, sharing around the implementation of that deliverable. So they're like creating the conversations around the content, making sure people are consuming the content, getting results from the content, and getting connected with each other. So at a core level, like that's, an engagement manager's role if you want to really subset a community manager. What happens, like you were saying, is they start to take on more and more responsibility And they end up taking on this role where they're part engagement manager and part program manager. So not only are they running the community, but they're running the membership. They're, helping with deliverables, making sure deliverables are getting out on time,
uploading courses and all sorts
uploading
of stuff,
content and writing the emails for the deliverables and writing the social posts for the deliverables and all those pieces. And that's great. They can really do that. But as your membership grows, you are going to get to a point where if you want those two roles to be filled, you will have to divide and conquer. And that's the place that we're at. I'm the community director role, the strategy role. We have two community managers. One of them functions there as the engagement manager. So their primary focus is the people. They track our stories. They're the one telling us like, hey, this person has a win to share, or hey, you should comment on this post. They're the one in the group making those connections primarily. The other person kind of functions more as a program manager. They're the one overseeing all the deliverables of the membership and making sure that all of those are getting communicated effectively and done on time. And then they work together, right? So it's like peanut butter and jelly. They're working together. They're going to mix a little bit. So they're both going to be in the community at times. They're both going to be in Asana at times, managing.
They're living in that Venn diagram, hanging out in the middle, right?
Exactly. Exactly. But it takes a while to get to that place. But when you start with a community manager, focus them on the engagement piece, you can start to roll them into some of the program components, but eventually you're going to overload them. And then you're going to have to really divide those roles. And the other thing I'll say that you brought up this glorified virtual assistant, right?
Yeah.
Your community manager needs a virtual assistant. And if they don't have a virtual assistant, you're paying them way too much for the jobs that they're doing. So we actually have two virtual assistants that support our team. They're amazing women that have been a part of the team longer than pretty much any of us. And they do things like Facebook group approvals. They actually schedule the social posts. So we put them all into an Airtable, which is like a fancy Excel spreadsheet. But they're the ones who actually go in and schedule the posts and make sure that they get put in there. So they're the ones who go in and schedule the emails inside of our email management system. So we're like creating the content, we're engaging in the conversations, but they're the ones getting people into the group, getting the emails tested and scheduled out, getting the social posts scheduled out. And that relieves a huge burden for us and frees up to spend more time building relationships inside of the community.
We've noticed that recently in a couple areas of our people who work in our community is that we're probably going to need a VA for a couple of them soon, because those little tasks add up, especially because, man, it's like just think about your real life. I would say that if anyone was being honest, they would point to a couple areas that cause frustration in their life. One is like inbox, right? Like we all have so many things coming into our email inbox.
Yeah.
The second thing is like social notifications, right? You're getting notifications. You got to turn that stuff off, but then you log in and you got all these Facebook things and what's going on. Then you get sucked down a rabbit hole. Like community managers live there. Like they live in the inbox. They have to log in to the Facebook group, to the Twitter feed, to the Slack channel. And that's just where they are. So it makes sense that they would be completely overwhelmed by this at some point if you don't do something to support them and help them like do that,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because what happens is membership owners, they start out and they're kind of filling the role of community manager, which they need to, because they're the ones who know the product the best. They're the ones building the culture, really emphasizing the cause. They've got to set all of that up really and get that going and build that momentum.
So those first four things, like the membership owner sets the cause, the membership owner sets the tone for the culture, the membership owner sets the values of communication. What does that look like?
Right.
And how we connect with these people. And then the person you hire can come in and adopt those things and then improve the method of delivery, basically.
Exactly. And what I find is that a lot of times membership owners will do that and they've got a smaller group in there and then they hire their community manager. It's oftentimes their first hire. I don't think it needs to be for everybody, but it's oftentimes the first hire. And then that community manager starts to get overwhelmed as the membership grows. And I'm like, gosh, no, I used to do this and run this membership and and be on podcasts all the time. And it's like, and there were 20 people in the membership then. Like there's 1,000 people in the membership now or 500 people in the membership now. It's a different ball game. And so I think as a membership owner, just remembering that what you were able to do when you were getting this off the ground. First off, you were probably in superhuman mode, because we all kind of go there when we're excited and ready to launch a membership, but then you kind of steady out once you get the rhythm of it. But your membership has grown, and the needs for the membership grows with that. And so when your community manager feels burnt out, it's important to really listen to them and find out what all tasks they have going on. What are the things that we can outsource, or do we really need to hire a program manager at this point to come alongside and support the community manager?
What are the red flags that your community manager needs support, or you need to hire another community manager? Like that would be
and question. I would say they need support, or you need to hire another community manager, or you guys don't have effective processes in place. So that's the other thing, is sometimes you just hire another person, but you're just putting fuel on the fire, and there's just not effective processes, and you got to clean up processes, which I'm really big on. But I would say red flags are your community manager is working through the weekend. We should all really have healthy boundaries around our memberships and our communities. We have really big family values. I have 4 children myself. So I can't work all through the weekend. Stu doesn't want me working all through the weekend. And we're very clear about that. Even in the busiest season for us, our launch, which we're about to enter into, we put a post inside of that group of 50,000 people, and we say, hey, our team is taking a break for the weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
Nice.
And I think those boundaries are important. But if they're working through the weekend, if balls are being dropped, so if like you've got a Q&A coming up and all of a sudden like the announcement goes up the day of, but it should have gone up the week before, then they're probably a bit overloaded, or you're finding errors in emails where typically they wouldn't have had errors in emails. It's where you start to see them slipping, or where you start to see them working really outside of the scope and bounds that they should be working in. And then the first thing I do is always come back, have a conversation with that person, check in with them personally. Sometimes there's things going on personally, and we just need to acknowledge that and create some space for them. But then I love doing like the full project and task list dump and going through that Eisenhower matrix of like what's important and urgent, and figuring all of those components out, looking at what can we outsource, what can we improve a process on. So for example, one thing that takes a lot of time is adding people into a Facebook group and approving people in a Facebook group. A lot of people don't know that you can download your buyers list. So this is something we do in the middle of launch, because we'll have 4,000 plus people to onboard into a group in like 5 days.
Right.
We'll download the buyers list throughout the day, every few hours, and upload that on the back end of the Facebook group and say, all of these people are pre-approved.
Nice.
That will streamline that process. Now, if they've already requested to be in the group, it doesn't like go back and retroactively approve them. But if you can get ahead of that, that can save somebody a ton of time. So that's a process piece that can save time. Having a VA schedule the social media post, process piece. Using something like our team uses a graphics tool called Figma. Our designers go in, we have the graphics, and our team can actually go in and change the dates and times. We have 3 standard graphics for Q&As or brainstorm sessions. We can go in and change the date and time just like we need to, and then use those for the post. That's a process thing, right? So there's lots of processes that we can put in place for community management that can really help save some time and relieve any extra burden that they have.
So basically, number one, get your processes in order. That's the main thing, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's on the same page with that. And then you can actually see real red flags instead of getting mad at someone for your own red flags.
Yes.
As the membership owner,
Yeah. Yeah.
know?
And it's so funny because we do this not just with community managers, but with all hires, especially I see this with VAs. A lot of people hire VAs and think they're going to come in and like tell them what's wrong. And I'm like, no, you literally have to have a standard operating procedure laid out and detailed out for a VA for them to be able to do their job effectively. So create time to do that first. But I find that is true in all areas where we hire somebody to fix our problems. And it's like, no, we've got to fix our own problems first and figure out what the processes are first. And then we hire that person to then help run and improve that process and build upon what we've done. The only other time that it works, where if you're hiring somebody to fix the problem, is if you want to pay a whole lot of money to hire somebody who can function at that high level and strategically think through those problems and help you solve them.
Yeah. We also too, like when we started really building a real team, like we all go through you go through a phase of like, I'm just gonna hire people. And then you realize I don't know how to hire people. And then you're like, I should probably learn how to do this before I do that again. Because that was expensive. Right.
Yeah.
But like when we went through and we hired people, one of our core values in our company is flipped lifestyle. Like we really are we're a family first company. And we take that on a deeper level. Like we all have 168 hours during the week. Right. And the way the modern world kind of works, like when are your kids, or especially with virtual school and everything we've all been through in the last year and whatever's going on.
Yeah.
It's just so uncertain your schedule sometimes. Right. So we let our employees kind of decide when they want to work. Like it's not a big deal to us the way we function. If we have meetings, but like that's about the only times that are concrete, you know? And one thing that we made a mistake is when we started hiring community managers, we weren't tracking time. Because I think it was like a personal bias of my old JOB days where I'm like, because I was a school teacher, I had to ask permission to go to the bathroom. I could only pee at 12 o'clock when the bell rang. Right?
My husband was a middle school teacher. So yes.
He knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I definitely know that. Yeah.
So I had this aversion to clocks and schedules that spilled into our own team. And Jocelyn kept telling me, she's like, Shane, this is dumb. Like, we don't even know how long these tasks are taking. Forget good systems. And we use Monday.com, and they have an awesome time tracking feature within each task. It's very intuitive how it turns on and off. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so we started tracking time, and like we were like, oh, well, like if we see 35 hours on someone's clock in the week, that's probably a yellow light. Like, what's going on? Like, did something? If we see 45 hours in a week, ding, 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 red flag up. Either something's wrong or we need to get somebody else because they've got too much like going on. Just being aware of how long things take has been a massive benefit to our team, especially in our community.
Yeah, I love that you do that. I love it. And we just recently hired a new community manager, but we hired one back in the summer, and he's my free spirit, and I love it because he's so relationship focused. I actually met him through my church. He was working in the student ministry, and I was like, this is my relationship guy. I love him. So he's more of our engagement manager role. But oh boy, like getting him to track his time when it first started.
I know.
He's like, this is painful. I'm like, I know it's painful, but it's so important. So I make sure that you're not spending more time on a task than you need to be, or that you don't have too much on your plate and that you're not getting burnt out. But sometimes it is a little bit painful to get people through that. But I think it's incredibly valuable so that you can really help them, help lead them well. And I think the reason so many people are averse to it, and you kind of touched on this, is it used to be tied to like, are you working 40 hours a week? And if not, you're not doing your job, because your job is to work 40 hours a week, not to accomplish any sort of task or achieve any sort of outcome. It's to work 40 hours a week. And I'm like, that is not your job. Your job is not to work 40 hours a week. Your job is to achieve an outcome.
We had to sell it from a culture standpoint. Like, we're like, look, our goal is to make your life. One, we want you, and have you ever heard of wealth dynamics? You ever heard of that before?
No.
It's like one of those, it's like Myers-Briggs or something, right? But the whole concept is how to lead teams and get everybody like in that timeless flow where you can like, oh, I worked 4 hours and I had no clue I was doing it because it was so fun. And we sold it to our free spirits, including myself, that like this is actually for your benefit because it identifies inefficiencies. That might mean that task doesn't really need to be in your wheelhouse, or it frees you up to go do the things that you really want to work on, because we can identify problem areas in your time tracking, things like that. And then just getting the right tool in place to be able to like track it effectively, right? Without it feeling so like you're punching the clock, and if you don't, you're gone, right? Like you don't want it to ever be like, take your lunch pail and go home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No. And I love that you did that from a culture perspective and a mindset perspective. And that's another reason that I love personality tests when hiring a community manager, and like strengths finders when I really love. I do look at their Myers-Briggs. That'll tell me a lot. Like hiring an FP for a community manager, you're really going to struggle. Because
I can vouch. I am an ENFP.
Yeah.
We're going down the Myers-Briggs road here, guys. If y'all don't know what this is. So it's like feeling, I'm touchy perception. You're not, you know what I'm saying? And my Jocelyn, and she's an INTJ. We are the opposite. of the
Yes.
spectrums, you know?
Yes.
And but I believe in that. So we make
Yeah.
people take that test.
Yeah. I'm a TJ. Like I love it. Like I'm a driver. I'm going to get the task done, but we have an FP on our team. He's our engagement manager, community manager. And we just know Asana isn't going to be his strong point. And that's fine, because where we can put him now that we are at a place as a company to have two, somebody who's more of a program manager, who is our dot the I's, cross the T's person, and then somebody who's more of a relationship builder, then we can have that FP and like let them run free and wild in our community and build incredible relationships and create incredible experiences. But we just need to know that when we pull them into Asana, like we're going to have to, it's going to be a little bit.
I'm going to have to poke the stick a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, hey, did you fill out your time this week? No, I didn't. That's okay.
Yeah. And the same thing, like our program manager, she's fantastic, but like she'll probably be a little bit more comfortable hanging out behind the scenes. We need to pull her into the community more and get her engaging more. And that's not going to be her default. So just being really aware of your people, what their strengths are, so that you can lead them really well and know that they're each individuals. You can't just like, cookie cutter all of these employees that you hire. I think that's so important.
Yeah. And everybody, and I think as bosses or leaders of teams, managers, we just have our own. It's so important to get out of, especially with community managers and people that do things differently than you do. They're not like you, and they're not going to do it like you. And it doesn't matter. It's still going to get done in a good way. And I constantly struggle with that. Like I see something, I'm like, that's not how I would have done it, but I might have burnt down the building as well. I'm sure Stu's had have you had a Stu moment or two in there where Stu's like, what are we doing? I don't think I'd do it that way, but I'm going to try to let go now because I got to go over here and be me.
Yeah.
Right? I do that all the time.
We've had to like create deadlines where it's like, if you don't have your thoughts to us by this day, we're moving forward no matter what. Right. Because otherwise you want to review everything. And I struggle with the same thing when we were onboarding community managers and starting to hand things off, and I would review their social posts and I'd be like, putting different emojis in. And I'm like, Shanna, oh my gosh, why are you changing the emojis in this social post right now? Like, this is not worth my time. It's like, there is how I would do it. And then there's how they would do it. And both of them are great. And they really don't affect the bottom line at all. But I was spending my time changing people's emojis. So.
I have so many times I have looked at a title of a podcast or the show notes. And like my job is to do this. This is my job. And we have maximized my time to talk to as many people as possible during the week. Right. Yeah. But I catch myself doing that all the time. And I'm telling you, the best way to get over this as a leader is to just don't look at it and trust your people. Yeah. And like if something's wrong, like if there's a broken link, that's going to come back. Like, or there's something actually wrong with something, a misspelling even in a title or whatever. Yeah. Somebody's going to like write in and tell you about it, Yeah. But like you just can't look at it. I don't even listen back to myself on a podcast because I don't want to know. I don't want to know what I said. I'm done. I'm out. Let somebody else figure out how to make me sound good. Let me ask you about the Facebook group, because this is you all have a huge Facebook group. It's an awesome Facebook group, and Facebook groups are really, really important, whether you want private Facebook groups for your, higher end clients or just your core membership, or you want to go big. When you start a Facebook group, a free one, and it gets a lot of people in it. You still have to manage that. That is a community that has to be led, because there is nothing that can go sideways faster than an unregulated Facebook group.
Oh yes,
right?
Very much. So
how do you guys approach managing the Facebook group, allowing people, random strangers, to comment and post their own things and do all that moderation? Like, how do you guys approach running a Facebook group?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it really depends on the group. So we have many groups. We have our free Facebook group that is just sort of like our general group where we collect people who would traditionally be on our list. And then that's where we're putting in like our free content, our podcast content, our launch content when we go to launch. So that group is ramping up a lot right now. Then we have our membership group. So our membership has roughly about 2,000 people in it. So we've got that group. Then we have our course group. So when we run our course, we have a group that's active for about 10 weeks. And last year, I think there were 4,000 people in that group. So we are a lot.
But that one ends, right? That one stops. It's over.
We archive that one. Yep, done. Because then we get them in the membership, right? Like, don't keep giving support to people who aren't paying you for support. That's my opinion. But The free group, we are a lot more strict in that group about what is allowed. Like when it comes to self-promotion and links, like no, none of that stuff. And it's just an easy, just delete it, move on, delete it, move on. And a lot of people on our team actually have moderation rights in that group because everybody has a pretty good understanding of like what belongs there and what doesn't. And we have a lot of our members who are in that group who are constantly sending us those like reported post notifications. And that's the good thing about having membership and loyal people. When you have a free group, they will naturally, whether you call them an ambassador, whether you pay them, doesn't matter. They're naturally going to protect that community. And we find that a lot inside of our free community. So for us, like when we're not in launch mode, it is just sharing a lot of our free content. It's pulling in our alumni, like highlighting them. So if people are asking a question about a particular type of membership, we're thinking like, who can we tag that's one of our members that has that kind of membership that can answer that question for them?
Someone asks about nursing and you go get someone who's been in the nursing or a teacher or whatever.
Right. But we're not coaching them. We're not giving them strategies that they can find outside of like our free community, because then what's the difference, right? If you're going to keep the content really organized for me, and if you're going to answer all my questions in this free community, then what incentive do I have to be a part of your membership?
We've even we have a private group for our members on Facebook, but we keep that more lighthearted, family focused, like fun, like Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And we actually use forums for our questions just to even drive home the fact you got to go log in where we tell you to log in if you're a paying member. If you're not and you slip through the cracks, we're just going to share memes with you. Like we're going to, right?
You're just going to get memes. You're just going to be entertained.
Yeah, you're going to be entertained. It'll be wildly entertaining. Don't get me wrong. But when you got a question, I pay people to answer your question. So get over here. Right.
Yeah. I love that. And that's like figuring out that structure and what works for you, I think is so important. And so for us, like the free group, it's largely just kind of like crowd control until we get into launch. And then it's, really ramping up the content that we're putting in there. And we use that group for like our Q&As during launch and all of those sorts of components. But for the most part, we're providing a lot of great free information through the podcast, but it's not really clean and organized and pretty. If you want clean and organized and pretty, and you want answers to your unicorn questions, because everybody's question is a unicorn question, right? Then you've got to be a part of our paid communities, our paid course group. So that is, oh man, that is fast and furious, because you've got thousands of people going all in on content for 10 weeks. And Stu goes live almost every single day, literally Monday through Friday. He's live every single day answering questions for people. And a lot of what we're doing there is pointing people to the resources that already exist for them. So what I find is a lot of community managers or even ambassadors, support people who are helping you in the community, they try to be the Stu, the Shane. They try to answer the questions with strategy, and that's not really our job. Like our job is to point people to the existing resources to get them to consume them and take action on them. So it's a lot of that. Like, where is this? What's that? What's my success path? So we try and anticipate what people are going to post. So for example, Stu teaches success path, right? He's got a module on success path. We know that everybody's going to go in the group and start posting their success path and asking for feedback. So preemptively, when that module releases, we do a post that says, show your success path and provide feedback to the two above you in this post. Yeah. So now when somebody posts their success path, we're driving them in the comments to that main post.
And you're mobilizing the community to get involved. And that's really, really important.
Yeah. So they're providing that feedback. People are feeling supported. And it's important that you make sure that when you are marketing your membership, that you position the community. If it's not where you're going to be coaching people, position it as community supported. Yeah. Position it as something like that. Don't sell people something you aren't willing to deliver. If it's a community supported community, then say that, and people will love that, because right now, especially now more than ever, people know that they need community and they're willing to pay for it.
We actually give a Member of the Year award at our live event every year, and it's based on replies in our forums. Okay. Like that's how
awesome.
That's how you score. Like if you reply to people, you don't get any points for your own posts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all replies. It's who's the Member of the Year if you're going to do it that way.
And that's part of your culture, and emphasizing that and highlighting that. We do similar things with, we have like little awards that we give them during the Q&As every time. But when you emphasize that as part of your culture, then that is the behavior that you're going to see more of. And I want to emphasize that, because people tell me all the time, well, like, how do I get people more engaged? And how do I get people? You pour water on the seeds that you want to see grow, right? So if you've got people in your community who are showing up like that, they're replying, they're engaging, they're providing good content or answering questions frequently, highlight them somehow, talk about them in your Q&A, talk about them on the podcast, do whatever you got to do so other people see, like, oh, she just got called out by Shane.
Send them a t-shirt.
Yes.
Right.
Oh,
give them their cape. They're super heroes, you know?
Exactly. Or give them a little award. Like, we just have a little award and they get a little graphic. It's like, you're the Better Together award, right? The support person of the week. So emphasizing those things will just create more of that. And so that's really like in that course community, that's what we're doing. And it's the same thing inside of the membership as well. And it's just, they get more freedom the deeper they get into our world. So free group, you don't have a ton of freedom. Course group, you're getting a little bit more freedom. Membership, you got a lot of freedom. Inside of our mastermind community, they have all the freedom in the world. They can post links, they can self-promote. They can do whatever they want inside of that community.
That's a good concept. I've never thought about that, is scaling. Like, we always think about scaling access through our programs, but scaling freedom of interaction. That's a really good concept. I've never really articulated, I don't think. But that's very interesting. I got one more question for you before we go here. This is kind of a tough one. So we're going to go down a rabbit hole a little bit.
No. Okay. All right.
So I think that, as you know, there's lots of people out there, course creators. I mean, we're like you guys. We're just, if you're not doing memberships, you're crazy. It's ridiculous. Right. Exactly. But there are nuances, especially in the modern world, in the current world, in the climates that we live in, about guiding communities, especially free communities. There are topics that get brought up that are very hard to address. And I know you guys have been through some of this. We've been through some of this.
Yes.
I've watched my people go through this. Like, there are political issues that come up. There are things like that become off topic of what we're teaching. And we have to make decisions, like, how do we handle that? So how do you guys navigate? I guess that I don't know what the way to say that. How do you navigate difficult things that come up that are not just like, I should delete that, right? That it's like, man, we kind of have to address these things in this day and age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think that's an interesting thing that all membership owners. I've got a guy that teaches like PowerPoint. It's like a PowerPoint software. It's the most technical engineering thing ever, but somehow he gets into an argument, or somehow someone brings up a really important issue in his membership, and he's like, I should probably leave that there, right? Like, how do you guys think through those tough leadership issues when these important topics come up, and how do you decide how to address them, how to confront them, how to be a part of the conversation, when to step back from the conversation, things like that?
That is such a good question, and
we don't mess around here, my friend.
And here's the thing: is I don't think anybody was prepared for what we experienced last year with the pandemic, with the Black Lives Matter movement, and how that would infiltrate every aspect of online communities. So if you were a public figure, or if you had a community online, it was something that you ended up needing to address. It was a very personal issue for us, for our team, for Stu. Stu has a son who is Black. He has a charity in Africa. We were all personally attacked during that time. And how we handled it, right or wrong, was stepping full force into it and creating space for that conversation to happen. Because what we knew was that silencing the conversation was not going to make it go away. It was only going to exacerbate what people were already feeling was not heard. So we stepped into the conversation. And because Stu knew his values of family and inclusivity, like, he had those values already, it was very natural for him to enter into those conversations. And because he's typically a very open and vulnerable person. Now, if you are not typically very open and vulnerable, and you don't talk about your family, and you don't have those kinds of conversations inside of your community, I personally think it's it's okay to have those kinds of boundaries, but you've got to set those boundaries now before the conversations come. So you have to set the boundary of, we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about what's going on in the world right now. We're here to talk about Excel and how to really use Excel effectively.
Right. And that needs to be in your guidelines ahead of time. Yeah.
And anything outside of that, no matter what it is, no matter how much we love and support it, it's going to be deleted, because we're focused on this mission here is to help you become the best at Excel. So if you have those guidelines in advance and people are bought into that, it's in the rules, it's in the description of the community, it's in the terms of service, or whatever you want to put it in, then the community knows, like, this is out of bounds. So when you come in and say, I really appreciate that you're going through this, and I know that this is a hard time for people. Here's a resource where you can have these kinds of conversations. This community is not the place for it because XYZ, we're really focused on this cause and this common mission. And we know that we have people who are walking through all different things in life. And we want to create space for that. But there are communities that are specifically geared towards that. We're not experts in this.
Yeah.
I think that is so important to be able to say, like, here are the experts, here are the spaces where these conversations can take place. And we encourage you to go to these places and learn and have these conversations. But we would be fools to try and facilitate this conversation inside of this, like, Excel membership group. So I think making sure that you're thinking ahead about those conversations and topics coming up. I mean, we've had everything that you can imagine. We've had, politics, we've had political movements, we've had, stuff around COVID and masks and not masks. And we've also had people post pictures of a loved one who has passed away and post pictures of the funeral and tell this
and you're
long
sitting there like,
story.
what's the call here?
I know. And it's so hard. And I think sometimes you just have to go with your gut. Like, sometimes there's no black and white in what we do inside of community management. And that's hard. And sometimes you maybe make the wrong decision, and being willing to come back and say, like, we deleted this post, but we probably shouldn't. And we're sorry. That was wrong of us. We were reacting versus really thinking empathetically about this. We probably shouldn't have deleted that. We were in the wrong. And the people who are your perfect, amazing members that you want around forever are the ones that are going to look at you and be like, Shane, you know what? That's okay. We're glad that you came to us in integrity and said that was wrong. And sometimes we have to learn from our community. And we've done a lot of that over the last year, learning from our community about how to handle these conversations and how to take something that does align with our values and something that is very important to us. And how do we enter into that conversation with people that we know are suffering through it, especially for us, for you, leading membership site owners. You got to talk about it because their communities are talking about it.
That's right.
So how do you lead and guide them effectively? It's so much of it now. We weren't ready for it in 2020, but it's 2021, y'all. You got to be ready for everything. You got to be ready to address these conversations. And if that means hiring outside experts, if you need to hire a DEI expert that is on call to support you because you anticipate those things are coming, do it. Do what you have to do. Set those boundaries in advance. Get really clear on your values, your culture, what's okay and not okay inside of your community. That way, when these conversations come up, you can just point back to those rules that are already in existence.
Yeah. And I love the proactiveness, right? Like, that's how we addressed some of those things. Like, I said, we need to have these conversations right now before somebody else decides to take the mic. Yeah. And so we had conversations. We just were proactive about it, and it seemed to be good. And then, like, also with great power comes great responsibility. I mean, let's get all Spider-Man philosophical here. And when you decide to be a membership owner, you're not just starting a business that generates recurring revenue. You are choosing to lead people. You really are. And just imagine, I mean, if you had 500 people, that's a village. What are you talking about? Like, you're the mayor. Like, you're going to have to engage. I think there's a tipping point where the people you bring in, at first, you're totally responsible for the culture.
Yeah.
But when you let thousands and hundreds of people into your life, the culture is going to change sometimes.
Yeah.
And you have to be a part of that culture too, and lead them effectively within that. That is wisdom coming out of your mouth today. That was awesome. I love it. I was just wanted to ask you that because I was like, she's going to have something to say about this because she went through some things. I saw.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I want to say that you guys handled it amazingly. I love Stu. I love watching him lead. I love talking to Stu. Anytime I get a chance to see what Stu's doing, it's absolutely amazing. And I think you guys handled it all of that stuff very, very well. And it's a reason that you guys are not only a leader in the membership world, but in the community management world as well. So if anybody had any questions for you or wanted to reach out to you, do you have anywhere online that they could do that?
Yeah, the best place to reach me is on Instagram. Like I just love Instagram. I love sending voice messages. I share my life. You'll get to meet my kids through Instagram. So I'm Shanna Speaks, Shana Speaks on Instagram. It's the best way to connect with me.
Well, thank you so much, Shanna, for being here today and for sharing all of your amazing wisdom and experience with us.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
All right, y'all. That is all the time we have for this episode of the show. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found today's podcast valuable. If you did, could you do me a favor? Go subscribe on Apple Podcast or Spotify. And if you could, please leave me a 5-star rating and a review. I read every single review and I cannot wait to read yours. After that, go tell a friend about the podcast and have them do the same. I'd also love to connect with you on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at Shane_Sams. Feel free to tweet me at any time. And if you want to learn more about how I became a self-employed, location-independent, family-focused online entrepreneur, and if you want to find out how you can do the same, head over to shanesams.com, that's ShaneSams.com, and learn all about my online business coaching community. Head over to shanesams.com and learn all about my community and my online business coaching program. That's all I've got, y'all. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, remember these words I live by. Dream big. Take massive action. Be consistent. Be prolific. Be relentless. And do whatever it takes to take control of your life and change your family's future. I'll see you next time.